Right. Okay. The other night, Ruthie and I were talking, and she said something to the effect of that things will change for a person only when they are ready. This got me thinking about us as Christians. We can only be Christians when we are truly ready. God is always ready for us. John 14, 1 through 4 says, "Do not let your hearts be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. My Father's house has many rooms. If that were not so, would I have told you that I am going there to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. You know the way to the place where I am going." So we know Jesus has already prepared a place for us, for in heaven. The catch is, are you ready to go to heaven? We as Christians and believers of God all want to go to heaven and believe that we are ready, but are we truly ready? John 14, 22 through 24 says, "Then Judas," not Judas Iscariot, said, "But Lord, why do you intend to show yourself to us and not to the world?" Jesus replied, "Anyone who loves me will obey my teaching. My Father will love them, and we will come to them and make our home with them. Anyone who does not love me will not obey my teaching. These words you hear are not my own. They belong to the Father who sent me." So in saying this, if you truly love Jesus, then you will obey his teaching. The problem is that it's difficult for us humans to obey his teaching sometimes. Some of them are particularly hard. For instance, I'll start with one of the hardest, which is forgiveness. When someone wrongs you, it is truly hard to forgive them, especially if that person continually wrongs you and does not apologize. We want to hold a grudge or get even. But in the Lord's Prayer, which we recited not 20 minutes ago, doesn't it say, "Forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors"? We ask this in our prayers, and yet we still have a hard time doing it. I personally have an exceptionally hard time with this. For instance, this morning when we said our prayer requests, we said a prayer for the shooting victims of Colorado. And I started to think, maybe we should say a prayer for the shooter. Yes, he's guilty, but the Lord tells us to forgive our enemies. So maybe we should pray for him. Pray for those who are guilty of these things, that they find salvation too. So maybe after this we can all have a little prayer for someone like him as well. I have lost my place. There we go. If someone wrongs me, I want to get even, but I know this was not in Jesus' teaching. I'm working on improving here, but it is truly difficult. Luke 6, 27 through 36 says, "But to you who are listening, I say, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, bless those who curse you, pray for those who mistreat you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, turn to them the other also. If someone takes your coat, do not withhold your shirt from them. Give to everyone who asks you. And if anyone takes what belongs to you, do not demand it back. Do to others as you would have them do to you." Now I know none of us here would turn the other cheek if somebody slaps us and say, "Oh, go ahead and get the other side too." But this is what what the Lord has told us to do. This is what Jesus has said to do. Turn the other cheek. If they steal your coat, give up your shirt as well. Truly challenges for us. It also says, "If you love those who love you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners love those who love them. And if you do good to those who are good to you, what credit is that to you? Even sinners do that. And if you lend to those from whom you expect repayment, what credit is that to you? Even sinners lend to sinners, expecting to be repaid in full. But love your enemies, do good to them, and lend them without expecting to get anything back. Then your reward will be great, and you will be children of the Most High, because he is kind to the ungrateful and wicked. Be merciful, just as your Father is merciful." If you only love those who love you, what have you gained? It is not a challenge to love those who love you. It's not a sacrifice. There's no difficulty in it whatsoever to love back those who love you. At least most times, I would think. It's a sacrifice to love those who don't like you, who wrong you. Now that's truly a sacrifice, especially when the opportunity for revenge may be ever present and easy. Frequently, even right after church, we hear people talking about people who have angered us throughout the week. We gossip. And isn't gossip another form of vengeance? We're hoping when we gossip that the other person will take our sides. We tell about who wronged us and what they did to us and how terrible a person they are. And we hope that this person will say, "Yeah, you're right, they're a terrible person." And maybe even hopefully take our side and avoid that person too. We're trying to build our teams up against one person, and we're all guilty of it. Every one of us does it. We talk about another person and we say, hey, yeah, this person did this to me. How horrible they are. Should we do that though? God has told us not to do that. Proverbs 26:20 says, without wood a fire goes out. Without a gossip a quarrel dies down. So this person that you're angry at, instead of gossiping about it, leave it alone, and the quarrel will die. It'll just die off, just as the fire would without wood. And I know I discussed the topic of forgiveness a lot, but I think it is one of the hardest things for us to do. So I figure if I repeat it enough, then I will have to do it more, and others will too. We all have the ability to forgive. The only question is, as we said earlier, are you ready? The next area for us to prove that we are ready for God is to resist temptation. Also in the Lord's Prayer that we just said, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. These days, temptation is ever present. It's everywhere we go, whether it's temptation to drink, party, even just act unchristian-like. It's all over TV. It's in our faces every day. As I said in my last sermon, society's morals have decayed to a point that what used to be considered socially unacceptable is now acceptable. The temptation to commit most violations of just the basic 10 Commandments is everywhere. And most times it's even forgivable these days in society. So what we need to do is pray for strength. If you feel you cannot resist temptation, then avoid the situations that include temptation. If you're prone to drinking, avoid bars and clubs. If you're inclined to possibly commit adultery, again, avoid bars and clubs. If you have issues with gossip, avoid people who gossip. Stay away from them. If you can't stay away from them, remember, you're not alone in temptation. We are all tempted to sin. 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, no temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, He will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. As we said right there, nothing that tempts us doesn't tempt everyone else in this room. The slightest temptation, I guarantee you, something tempts one of us, it tempts 90% of us. But God always gives us a way out. He shows us the way. If we just look for it, if we open our eyes, we will see the way out of our temptation. No matter what that temptation is, there's always a way to avoid it. When you feel temptation coming on, remove yourself from that situation. When you've removed yourself from that situation, then pray for strength. Pray that next time you have the strength to remove yourself. Or give thanks for the ability to resist that temptation. We should always thank God, and we should always thank Him when we have this ability to walk away. If you cannot physically remove yourself from that temptation, then pray for strength right then and there. You don't have to be obvious about it. You can always just have a moment of silence, a moment just to say a prayer. God, give me the strength to face this and get through this. If He did, remember, give thanks, because He gave you the strength. We don't get our strength from anyone else. We get our strength from God, whether it be in the form of another person who's supporting us. He still gave them the strength to support us. When you see someone else in a situation where they're going to be tempted, help them, guide them, steer them away from it. Steer them away from temptation. We all know what tempts each other. We're close enough that we all know where we have our problems, and we need to steer each other away. God will not allow you to be tempted beyond your means. He will always throw you a rope, even if it's in the form of one of us. We can be that rope, or the person at the other end reeling you in. You always have the ability to resist. It simply boils down to one thing. Are you ready? Are you ready for Christ? Are you ready for Jesus? Are you ready for God? Are you ready for heaven? We know that it's difficult to follow Jesus' teachings. It has never been easy. Since Adam and Eve were kicked out of paradise, it wasn't even easy for them, and they were the only two there, and they couldn't resist temptation. How do we have a chance? We have other people tempting us. We didn't have just Satan. We had Satan tempting everybody who tempts us. If it were easy, Jesus would have had no reason to die on the cross for our sins. We also know that we're going to slip up now and then. And when we do, we have to forgive ourselves first. We have to ask Jesus for forgiveness. We know that He will forgive us, but will we truly forgive ourselves? And we have to forgive each other, because we know that we all slip now and then. But we have to forgive others when they slip. Or how can we forgive ourselves or expect forgiveness? What we truly need to do, though, is try more to live a Christian lifestyle. Because going to church every Sunday, but continuing to do whatever you do during the week, does not make you a Christian. Any more than I always see making a car, or going into a garage makes you a car. You have to truly make every effort to change your ways and live as Christ taught. And it's not an easy path, as Pastor Fran told us a few weeks back. It's a narrow path. Wide is the path of temptation, but narrow is the path to salvation. So my only question to you is, are you ready? Thank you.